Bonjour et bienvenue pour une nouvelle séance de French dans mon salon. Bonjour mate, bonjour mate, bonjour mate. Today I want to talk to you about getting French people to understand you when you try to speak French. There is nothing worse than trying your best and having somebody that looks like they are not understanding you. And yet you checked on Google or ChatGPT, whatever you use, and you know that you are saying the correct words, but for some reason they are not understanding you. There are a few things that you can do to fix this. The good news is that French people are actually used to hearing accents. We have many people that visit our country every year, so we are used to accents. So it's not about the accent and it's not about perfection. It's about listening for a certain flow. And sometimes it's just one sound that's off that can make us feel like we are not understanding you. Here's the thing, French is a language that really relies on sonorité and flows. So if one sound is off, French people will not understand you and they might pull a face that looks a bit like this. The first tip that I would give you is to slow down. Slow down. When you speak French, try and slow down. I find that often when you are learning a language, and I do the same when I try and speak in Spanish as well, I find that you tend to try and get all your words out. You've got your sentence ready in your head and you just try to get them all out because there's a bit of tension in you, you're anxious. So you start speaking really, really fast and you forget some syllables along the way, which can sometimes make words sound differently to what they are supposed to sound. And so your meaning is completely off. And then the person that's listening to you is obviously not understanding. Now, some people can have imagination and build on and, try, but a lot of French people, unfortunately, will just not understand you. For example, if you're trying to say, je vais à la librairie, but you say, je vais à la libraire, that altogether sounds weird. Je vais à la libraire. Hein? Qu'est-ce que tu veux dire? La libraire? Ah, la librairie. Oui, d'accord. Let's say if you say something like je vais à la boulangère instead of je vais à la boulangerie. So just make sure that you pronounce every single word fully. Even if that means slowing down your pace, the person to who you're speaking clearly knows that you are not French. They are not expecting you to speak very fast, but it is easier for them to understand you if you go slowly and say every single syllable. My advice number 2, which is a very simple thing to fix, but it is a very common mistake which can put your listener off. First of all, because they're not too sure what you're talking about anymore. But I hear in my classes, every time we have a class, at least one person will make that pronunciation mistake. And maybe they're going to focus on that mistake instead of continuing to listening to what you are saying. That is the mistake between un and une. It is very important that when it's UN alone, you pronounce it with the nasal sound un. It is extremely common for learners to say un. First of all, it sounds like Spanish, un. But it also sounds close to une, which is a feminine version of un, which puts us off because we start thinking, oh, maybe he's not talking about what I thought he was because it's feminine, not masculine. We are used to that feminine and masculine and we attach that gender to things in our head automatically. So it puts us off if you get this wrong. So it's a simple thing to fix to sound more fluent or at least to sound more comfortable in spoken French is to make sure that when you are saying and together, you are saying un. So, un chien, un appartement, un sandwich, un croissant. And as I said, it's a mistake I hear all the time, so don't worry if you do it yourself. By the way, I'm Eva and I teach French on my platform Bonjour Mate. It's a very nice environment and you're more than welcome to join. There are mixed level classes, but we do focus on different levels every week. It is just $9.95 to join and you will have access to all the recordings as well as the live classes. So I'll put the link in my description here. And if you have any questions regarding it, don't hesitate to message me or comment. Now that brings me to advice number 3. The final E in French of any word is silent, okay? So unless it has an accent on it or that it is part of a 2-letter word like le, te, me, the E is silent. So one of the most common mistake I hear is the pronunciation of that final E as an E sound. So you will say something like je parlais à mon ami. Now, that is not incorrect. That's E sound if it was spelled AIS at the end and that you were talking in the imparfait, in the past. But if you're talking in the present and that you have a final E at the end of a verb or any other word, that final E is silent. And what you are hearing is actually the last consonant sound. So take the word petit. If it is feminine and it's got an E at the end, it is written as petite with an E at the end. But you're not hearing me say petite or petite. You're hearing me say petite. That final sound that you're hearing is a T sound, petite. Not petite, not petite. Let's say the feminine of grand. Grande. It's got an E at the end, but I'm not saying grande ou grande. I'm saying grande. Confortable, I'm not saying confortable or confortable. I'm saying confortable. Bleu. It's the B and L together. So if you have 2 consonants together, that's the sound that you're hearing. Bleu. And that works for every word that has a final E. And it is especially important, as I was mentioning before, with verbs, because it sounds like you're talking in a different tense if you say E at the end. So it's very important to remember that pronunciation rule. And it can be difficult to get used to it. Try and practice. One of the best way of practicing these sorts of things is to read out loud. When you read out loud, you are forcing yourself to pronounce the words and to memorize the pronunciation and to correct yourself. Even reading out loud and recording yourself can be helpful when you can hear the mistakes that you've made and correct your own mistakes the next time. Tip number 4. French is a connected language. That means that every word is kind of connected, or at least a lot of words are connected to make the language sound fluid. So it's important to understand the liaison. One of the ways that we connect the words together is with the liaison. Now, if you know the main rules of the liaison, you will already get by a lot. Obviously, the liaison can get complex as well, but if you know the main rule, then you will be okay. Sounding like everything is connected can be one of the reasons why you fall into speaking too fast. So don't forget the first rule of speaking slowly. Just connect your words, but do it slowly. Make sure you are still pronouncing all the syllables. So the basic rule for the French liaison, it's the idea of pronouncing the normally silent consonant at the end of the word with the vowel that starts the following word. So you're linking them together. Now there are some mandatory liaison, and that works with words that starts with a vowel or with words that start with a silent H. It is always required between a determinant and a noun. For instance, les enfants, between a pronoun and a verb, nous étions or vous êtes, and between an adjective and a noun, mon petit ami. You can hear the liaison sound here. When the final consonant is an S, the liaison sound that you are going to do is a Z sound. Les enfants, les enfants. When the final consonant of a word is a T, then it's going to be a te sound. Mon petit ami. Mon petit ami. Where it gets tricky is that when the final consonant of a word is a D, you also do a te sound. Mon grand ami. Mon grand ami. The letter is a D, but we're doing a te sound. When the final consonant is an N, you are doing an N sound. Un ami, un ami. And when the final letter is an X, you are doing a Z sound as well. Aux enfants. Aux enfants. Now, tip number 5. It is really important that you practice nasal sounds and that you know which one is which, so that you don't make silly confusions, like between vent and vin. One of my Instagram videos that was very popular. A lot of you recognized yourself in that mistake, which is so easily done because those nasal sounds don't exist in English. So it is normal, if you're not used to them, that you struggle with them. So I'm not saying it's not normal and French people won't make fun of you, but they won't understand what you are saying sometimes, because it does change the meaning of words a lot of the time. Make sure you practice your nasal sounds. And again, one of the good ways is to read out loud, record yourself, try and practice, or practice speaking. You can join my classes, for instance, or try practicing with a friend, maybe if you've got a French friend, with your nasal sounds. It is important to know the distinction between on, and un, and to know the different spellings that can produce those sounds. I will list them all in the description so that you have them, but make sure you practice that on sound, that en sound, and that un sound. The big mistake to avoid is pronouncing the letters separately. That N in the nasal sound is not pronounced, it is part of that one sound. On is not on, un is not un is not on. So for on, your lips are pushed forward and rounded. On. For en, your mouth is wide open. Or for a French person, this is wide open. It's not like on, but it's en. Your mouth is open. And for un, your lips are a little bit close and in an awkward smile. Un. Remember, it's a nasal sound, so some air has to flow through your nose. Okay, it doesn't come just from that. It's not it's comes from here too. Make sure when you practice them that you exaggerate them so that you can make the distinction between all of them. And that brings us to the last tip. Tip number 6 is don't overstress a certain syllable rather than another. French is a syllable-timed language rather than a stress-timed language like English. Instead of emphasizing certain syllables like in English, in French we give the same intonation to almost every single syllable. So usually the stress in French occurs at the end of a sentence as a whole rather than within words. It's important because stressing certain syllables can make words sound a bit foreign to a French ear that's trying to understand you. Voila, I hope these tips were helpful. Let me know how you go in the comments. Let me know what you find is the hardest thing in French when it comes to pronunciation. I do think that if you implement those tips, you will already feel a lot better and see some improvements. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe. This means the world to me. Voila. Bisous.